Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Sunday Sit Down. So, we are at my house today. Instead, I thought, let's skip the office environment and let's just have a relaxing time. Let's see if I can show her there. This is Daisy. Daisy's one of my little monkeys. She just could not stay out of the video tonight. So, I just want to have everybody enjoy this. I want you to learn a lot. The topic that we're discussing is electrical. In the last week or so, I've had 3 separate realtors approach me and ask me about aluminum wiring. So I thought better to get an expert to give you guys the information. Hope you enjoy it and learn lots. And one more thing I'm excited about, this electrician is offered to be the RE/MAX Crosstown official electrician for answering questions. So all you need to do is email me your questions. I will forward them to him and he will answer them for you. Thanks very much, and I will see you all in the office. Hi, I'd like to introduce everybody today to our guest. This is Ivan Kurz. Ivan is a master electrician and he is over 25 years in the industry. Everything ranging from residential to industrial to commercial to farm and even to the most common and probably most recent years, solar, which is another whole conversation that we'll be having another time. So I would just like to talk to Ivan about a couple different things that seem to be happening in the real estate field. So home inspectors. Everybody usually gets a home inspection when they are purchasing a home. One thing that over the years I've found with home inspections is, they're someone who is a little bit of a jack of all trades. They know basic information about multiple fields. And one thing that I think has seemed to happen over the years is they seem to sometimes, not all inspectors, but some, seem to be a little bit too anxious to get into the electrical field when they are not an electrician. So I just wanted to have Ivan here today to ask him about some different electrical situations that I've run into and I know other realtors have run into. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, first question for you. What is the difference between volts and amps?
Well, voltage is the power that comes into your house, and amperage would be the pressure coming into the house in a layman's type term.
Yeah.
So most houses, if we're going to deal on the residential side, most houses have 220 volts coming into their house.
Okay.
But then most services coming into the house have a size of service that's either a 100 amp or a 200 amp service.
Okay, great. So when people are, myself, I've run into a situation where there was a listing, and in the listing I had put 220 volts right on the listing coming in. Well, afterwards, I guess the agent on the buying side unfortunately hadn't told that to his clients, and they just assumed it was a 200 amp. I guess that's what they thought. So after the deal closed, they realized it was not a 200 amp, it was a 100 amp service, and they came and were upset with me. And I went back, looked at the listing, because I'm very sure that I had spoken to you first.
Yes.
Which I had.
Yes, you had.
Because I do my homework, because I am not an electrician and I'm not going to pretend to be an electrician. So what I did was I had gone to you, but then in the end it worked out fine because I had clearly stated in the listing that it was volts. It was a farm property, so a little bit different power situation. Now, another big thing that's been coming up that has been probably the biggest situation that I've dealt with, and that I've had 3 in the last week, 3 different people in the last week asked me this question. Aluminum wiring. Is it terrible, and do they have to not buy the house?
No, aluminum wiring is actually still very safe as long as it's taken care of properly and it's installed properly.
Okay, so if there is a house, I'm just going to ask you questions that come up all the time. If there is a house with aluminum wiring, they usually don't find it until the home inspection. What usually happens is I get a phone call, a panic phone call. Oh my goodness, I did a home inspection. There was aluminum wiring. Now I don't think my clients can buy the house. It's going to cost a fortune. Now, I very calmly speak to them, but the question for you would be, the aluminum wiring, is there a way to make it safe?
Yes, there is.
And how would you do that?
There are actually 2 ways to make it safe. The first thing you have to do is actually get an electrician in
Okay.
Okay, a qualified electrician that's registered with the Electrical Safety Authority.
Not a friend or a buddy.
No. And so the one way you can do it is you can make sure that all your plugs and switches are all done with plugs and switches that are rated for aluminum wiring.
Okay.
Most receptacles that in my experience over the years, and what they've done is they've just changed their plugs, and it was just a homeowner doing it, so they just put in the standard thing they could get at a regular Home Depot or Home Hardware, and they would put in plugs that are not rated for aluminum. That's the first way you can do it, is putting in plugs that are rated, but the cost is a lot higher for those.
Okay.
The cheaper way to do it, and to utilize the same existing plugs and switches that you have in your house, is what we call a thing called pigtailing.
Okay.
So you're actually taking the aluminum wiring, twisting it together using proper barrettes that are rated for aluminum, and taking a copper tail off to your plug or switch.
Okay, so that's what I've done in the past. As you know, because you're my electrician, my husband and I, we've bought houses with aluminum wiring, and very well knew they were aluminum wiring, and we purchased them anyways. Had you come in, does that mean you have to go to every switch and every plug
Yes, you
in
do.
the house?
Yes, you
And what else? Anything with the panel?
do. You need to go into the electrician will need to go into the panel to make sure that there's what we call an antioxidant on the wire for expansion contraction, because aluminum expands and contracts more than copper does. So that needs to be looked at and visually inspected, plus all the light fixtures.
Okay.
Because
light fixtures too.
Light fixtures themselves.
That I did not know. I learned something today.
Because that's one of those things where over time, and they've really started to clamp down on this, that the proper barrettes are being used and that sort of thing that are rated for aluminum wiring.
Okay, so just to let everybody know, this will be necessary for most insurance companies. I'd say almost all insurance companies now. A lot of the time, they allow you a 30-day or a 60-day window to get this done after you purchase, but you will have to do it. You will have to prove that you've done it, or you will not be getting house insurance for your client. The other suggestion I would make is when you are before you waive your condition on home inspection and your electrician, if you want a true value of what this is going to cost, then I really think you need, during that conditional period window, or if you have to add to it, you need to have the electrician come and actually give you a quote.
Yes.
Because it could cost anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000.
Depending on the size of the house and actually how much has to be done, what they have for electrical in that place.
Right. So I just had one where an electrician quoted $1,600 for a house. So if it's not a very large house, that sounds kind of reasonable.
Yeah, that would be fairly reasonable.
Yeah. So it definitely is an expense. It's definitely something that you're going to have to, factor into the price. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to buy the house. It doesn't mean it's a horrible house. And what years? Was it around the 70s that they did the 74, 75?
Yeah, there was times in the late 60s to the up to say 75, somewhere in that time frame, that they did a bunch of aluminum wiring.
So one more thing, sorry to go back to this, but when you're doing the pigtailing and you're adding the copper, is that to ground it?
No, that's so that because you're using plugs and switches that are not rated for aluminum wiring, you're using that piece of copper so that it's on that plug or switch that's only rated for copper. So you're making that junction point between the aluminum and the copper with that tail.
So another thing might be a good idea is before somebody lists their house, making sure this is done so that it doesn't become a problem when they go to sell their house.
So the easy way to do that is the owner of the home could have their electrician come in, inspect the home, but then the new buyer could request to say, have you done this? And if they have done it, and to make sure that it's been done legal, is the homeowner themselves would call the Electrical Safety Authority and have an inspection done. Okay. And in that way, that inspector comes in there, and then they have a document to say that it's been done.
Sticker on the panel.
Sticker on the panel, whatever he's going to leave, because there are electricians out there that will do it, and it won't qualify for insurance on the house on a later date.
And how much would an inspection cost?
Home inspection for something like that,
like an ESA inspection.
Yeah, ESA inspection, is around $200 or somewhere around that mark.
So very worth it for $200.
Very worth it for insurance later on, and safety, and able to sell your home if you're selling it, and comfort to the prospective buyer.
So I have one more question for you. If someone decides to not get it done, so maybe even a current homeowner decides not to get their aluminum wire at the outlets pigtailed, what could happen?
You actually could have a fire, because what happens with aluminum wirings, like I said earlier, is it expands and contracts a lot quicker than copper does. So if you have something that's plugged into your outlet, like a hair dryer,
Okay.
you plug that in, it's using a lot of power, so it heats up, and then you stop your hair dryer, you go away, and the wiring cools down. And what it does is it actually loosens up within the screw that it's underneath, and it can start arcing and sparking and could start a fire.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for all this information. I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope that you've learned a lot from it. So, to summarize, aluminum wiring is not the end of the world, and the house is still a very nice house regardless, and there are definitely solutions to make it worth it. Thank you very much, Ivan.
You're welcome. Hi, Daphne. I'm sorry. I was talking to your mommy. Are you okay now?